Not because he was powerful, but because he learned to give it away to everybody else. To his staff, to the subcontractors, to the participants. He learned how to do that, and he did it, and became one of the most influential and powerful people in town. It was an organization with top performance ratings in the state nearly every year. He comes into his own. He establishes deep contacts in the community and dedicates himself to the growth and development of the people underneath him, not to his own self-aggrandizement. There's no John Kiley brand. There's no John Kiley dress for success. There's John Kiley developing his followers into empowered people themselves. And he comes into his own and he hits full stride. He works tirelessly behind the scenes to influence policies and practices, rules and regulations that influence things for the better, for the good of the poor. One great run. At this point, John needs to grow himself. He's ready to take the next step. He's ready to be bigger, fields to do, and he applies and gets a job at United Way of the Quad Cities. He's vice president for a while. He sets up a number of programs. The most important thing he did during part of that time was he led a community effort to put together a program called Success at 6, which brought together numerous organizations in town to deal with those kids who are infants up to 6 years old. It now serves as a model. Most people don't know he did it. It now serves as a model for how to do these kinds of programs in town. It's the gold standard. He's promoted to be the president of United Way. Is it president? Was it president? This is president, not director, right? It's president of United Way from 2004 to 2007. He's now widely recognized as one of the most influential leaders in town for innovation, change, and collaboration for the good of the people in the community. He knows hundreds of people, maybe thousands. Thousands. I joke between John Kiley and Dan Ebner, they must know 5,000 to 6,000 people personally. Can look at them in the face and call them by name. It's uncanny. I can't remember the names of my 10 grandchildren. They worked on all of this. They had the highest fundraising in the history of the United Way of the Quad Cities under Kiley's leadership. They were nationally recognized by Charity Navigator, an organization that does assessments of how organizations doing with distribution of charity funds. There were only 13 United Ways in the nation to get the highest rating 3 years in a row. They got the highest rating 3 years in a row under John Kiley's leadership. A testament to his ability to develop the staff and to get his followers to become leaders themselves. This was John's attempt to introduce Casual Fridays. It just didn't work out very well. Actually, I can't say how many pictures Kathy has of John dressed weirdly. And I was talking to Dolores about this morning. And on the one hand, it looks like it's fun and it's common. But how many of us would look like this, would have the courage to go out and make a fool of ourselves? Now, maybe you think that's too strong. But John dressed up in all kinds of get-ups in all kinds of ways, right? We do have pictures of him trying to dress up as Tina Turner, but we thought it might be too much for you guys. So we did the "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" He had the courage to look foolish so that others could get some benefit out of it. And he was a ready hand at this, because Kiley was also quite the ham. And was in some theater productions as well. When he becomes president of United Way, he enunciates the philosophy that he and I learned and developed together at CETA and JTPA. And that is, we talk about resources and people and think it's about money. But no, it's not. Resources are just partnerships we have with each other. The key to social change is building relationships with each other in a way that empowers all of us to make those changes. And we learned that and practiced that when we worked together at CETA, and John honed it to its highest skill at JTPA and United Way. This is the real deal. This is it. And you can ask Tim Phillips if he doesn't think it's the same. And that's his philosophy too. Yeah, Tim? Yeah. Absolutely. We've talked about this ourselves many times. Something happened at United Way. I'm not free to talk about it publicly, but he got ousted. And I don't want to go into details. This is not a tell-all. It wasn't fun. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't right. It wasn't nice. But, as they say, shit happens. It happens to good people, too. It happens to people who know what they're doing. Sometimes because they know what they're doing. All right? That's enough. But his friend Dan Ebner, we know Dan Ebner. You had service learning today. Dan Ebner, the other person that knows more people in town than anybody else. Another community leader that does everything behind the scenes, building on relationship and making change. A tremendous force for good in the Quad Cities and in the region. Dan Ebner. And of course, he and John had worked together on a number of things because these good people find each other and work together. Partnership. And he helped John get a job. Did the job that he left at the Diocese of Davenport, the Director of Social Justice. Great job for John. Here's John with Father Modet, another person that's been doing social change for the good of the poor and disadvantaged for 60 years. Dug in for 60 years. You ever heard of him? Is he dressing for success? He's got a uniform every day. It's cheating. And here John is helping award Father Modet the Pachimenteris Award that John nominated him for and then helped him get. John, even as Mr. Inside, still remembered the good old days of leading demonstrations, organized a group of people, went up to Postville, Iowa, where the Immigration Service had arrested 350 illegals working at the Postville slaughterhouse, and went up there to Postville to protest and to find justice for these poor workers. Interesting connection to his understanding of Mexican immigrants and the injustices they face in Joe's. We all knew this. We all worked together on this one. Okay? And John's out there at this point leading the demonstration in Postville. But notice where he is in the pack. Is he up front? Is he taking the credit for it? That's not him. That's not what you do. John was on a number of community groups. He was on my board of directors when I was working there. We worked on 2 jobs together. He was on the board of directors of a 3rd job. And I hired him here as an adjunct faculty. So 3 jobs together, went to college together, on the board of directors together, 40 years. 40 years. He was one of the founders and early members of the Open City Film Society. He and I joined Midcoast Fine Arts as board members together. He was an occasional actor at Genesius Guild and a regular patron. He was a fine runner. Even in his 50s, he was almost as good as he was in his 30s. He was an incredible runner. He was a terrible basketball player, but he was a great runner. We used to call him Flipper on the basketball court because he couldn't get his hands up fast enough to keep himself from getting hit in the face. But he was a tremendous runner and a great tennis player as well. Vic, Boston, and everywhere in between. Highly on the road. Highly on the road. And there's so much I've left out. John would organize book clubs, guys' night out. If there was something that would be organized and put people together socially and connect with people, John was doing it. You can tell who kept running in their life and who didn't. 2 years ago, in this coming February, Valentine's Day night, we have a group of 5 couples called the Usual Suspects. We've been together 30 years, 35 years as couples, highly unusual in itself. And we meet together all the time. And we're at our friends Bob and Vicky's house for Valentine's Day. And John, as they always did, brought all of the women chocolate truffles in a gift wrap thing for Valentine's Day. And made the rest of us look bad, year after year after year. And you'd think we'd remember, but we didn't. But he always did. So he parted company. At midnight, John died in his sleep of a heart attack. 3 in the morning. And that was it. And that was it. And we lose this man. Or maybe we don't. Maybe we keep him. Last piece, and I know we're a little over, but I'm sorry. Joe and John, differences. They had very different personalities. They had very different temperaments. They had very different styles. Joe drove hard on the issues. He understood about relationships, but he was primarily interested in the issue. Tom and I were talking about this. If you didn't get the issue, God save you, okay? Because he was going to be in your face unrelentingly. He understood relationships, and towards the end of his life, Joe began to move, I think, in John's direction. Joe began to move in John's direction. But Joe was always going to be an in-your-face kind of guy. Relationships were always going to be second to the issue. The thing was, if you didn't get the issue, if you didn't understand what it meant to be poor, if you didn't understand what it meant to be down and out, if you didn't understand what it meant not to be equal, then shame on you, and I'm going to be in your face until you do. And it better be soon, because I don't like it. Okay? Both men are driven by love. At the core, these men are love men. Men of passion. They express it differently. John in a very quiet, enduring kind of way. Joe on his sleeve. But they were both men of passion. They're both driven by a deep sense of moral integrity. Think about this. They both were ousted, one by Cesar Chavez, for God's sakes, okay? And another by other people in town, right? Over moral issues. Keep your job. Your job is second to your integrity as a person. They're both Catholic men of faith. They were both deeply Catholic. I don't know if either one of them ever questioned their Catholicism. They didn't like some of the theology, but at their core, they were Catholic and men of faith. They were both intellectually powerful men, deeply curious, read all the time, read everything. They were deeply intellectual, powerful people. Knowledge is power and a tool to help people get what's important in life. They both believe that. They are also courageous men. You don't dress up like John does and not be courageous. You don't knock on doors every day, day in, day out for years, having people tell you no, 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 and be able to go out there and do it again every day. They stood up to people in authority and power from the time they were here as freshmen until their deaths. A long record of courage. And a model for all of us. They both had tremendous senses of humor. They told wonderful jokes. They had great stories. And often those jokes and stories were jokes on them. They were very self-deprecating men. And underneath, they had a great sense of humility. That's Joe and John. They were student leaders here. Today you know about them. They're models for what you might do. Think about leadership in this way. Forget the rest of the crap. Thank you.